donning the motif of the mystical blue sea dragon, both in power and in looks. It is GAT00 Sea Swallow, with the kit of Thundershot, Laser, Needle Guard, Biped Legs, and the leg ability of Carrier, which grants a chance to pass along any active debuffs to self to enemies when attacked. Now, Sea Swallow we've only seen just a very small number of times, and by that I mean first time ever debut in story mode as an enemy NPC. But as of this week, he is officially a model that can be pulled in the gacha, and with him he is introducing a brand new skill to the game that definitely will change up how a lot of counter guards work in the game, with a more conventional and better known method of countering and reversing attacks. Thundershot on the head, and currently one of the only instances of Thundershot on male models pretty much in general, is an ailment-based move with a long-range combat mastery. But, simply explained, upon attacking the target, you will inflict them with a Thunder ailment, which will stop them cold in their tracks where they are standing. This will allow you to buy yourself a couple extra precious seconds of time to outrun the opponent, or even stall a more dangerous one while you prepare a nuke to take them down or cripple them. And of course, with it being a long range, means long range mastery, it makes it a lot easier to stall enemies from afar. Of course, this does also mean anyone using super armor or stat cleanse will be completely immune to this ailment, but again, as the first time ever used on a male model, it is already off to a very solid start for what Sea Swallow brings to the table. Laser on the right arm is a optic attribute skill that gets a times 1.5 damage bonus at 30% charge and a times 2 damage bonus at 100% charge. And this is arguably going to be Sea Swallow's more consistent form of base damage while he's on the field. And even though it is Metaforce reliant and it will take him some time to actually build that up to get to it, it can be an absolutely nasty skill while it's on the table. And in addition to this, it also is non-heavy and has a base power over 1600 before any modifiers come into play. This means it is an exceptionally powerful optic attribute skill that you really don't see often on a lot of boss-type bots, that are not boss-type bots, and especially on a right arm no less, so very valuable just for that alone. Needle Guard on the left arm is a brand new skill being introduced into the game that, upon entering defensive stance, will allow Sea Swallow to intercept 2 incoming attacks, whether they be melee or shooting oriented, and reverse them back to sender at half the intended damage. So basically this kind of is Mirror Guard and Counter Guard all rolled into one. Now, of course, this does mean that, much like Mirror Guard and Counter Guard, as of a couple recent updates, they will intercept everything. Needle Guard is going to be much easier to use, because it means, of course, he's going to intercept the next 2 blows no matter what, unless the enemy is stealth or using through shot or through fight and it triggers. But it also means that it's guaranteed to reverse it back to sender if it's not going to be something that's a shield buster. So that means anything with, say, defense seal, destroy, or anything like that cancels it will, of course, null the guard, but in any other case it will reverse damage and make him a very consistent auxiliary shooter and defender while he's on the field. Biped Legs also means he will have very solid coverage across all terrains at arguably one of the most well-rounded when it comes to terrain compatibility and matching, and his stats are actually not too shabby across the board. Very good base power, great armor, but he's also got a couple of particular pain points too that I probably should consider discussing. In terms of armor, he's most certainly packing a pretty healthy HP pool too as well, with a head HP of about 3550, right arm at 3000, left arm at 4000, and his legs at about 4150. So very, very healthy HP pool, and honestly a very solid model for that reason alone, which makes him very conventional and well-rounded on the field. Good base power of about 1739 and 1632 for Thundershot and Laser respectively, again as base damage, not without any modifiers. And his leg stats are honestly kind of a mixed bag in some case. A base mobility of 904 is fantastic honestly, as it means he will most certainly have the speed advantage while on the field before any other modifiers or terrain bonuses, and an evade of 1439 is also very, very nice, and it does mean he will be putting a lot of emphasis on dodging or grazing attacks to keep his damage low. But with a melee and a shoot resist at 574, those are probably going to be one of his biggest pain points while he's on the field, because this means that while he will put a very big emphasis on dodging and having good armor, he does not have the resist stats that allow him to tank powerful blows very well. So even though he will be relying on dodging and grazing, like I said, the one attack that does land, whether it be shooting or melee, is absolutely going to be immensely painful the moment that it makes contact. In addition, Carrier is also a very unique ability as well, but it also does come with the caveat that it does actually kind of require you to be debuffed with something first. So that includes Wave, Hold, Fire, Melt, or so on, or even Freeze or Thunder if it's still active and he's attacked. Again, it requires you to be inflicted with it first before it actually does anything, which does actually kind of hinder the overall viability of Carrier, except as like a revenge tactic, which you really don't want to rely on too heavily in current competitive meta. All this being said though, as a pure set score, I still do have to rate Sea Swallow a pretty solid 7.5 out of 10. When it comes to stats across the board, despite his relatively low resist stats, he is very well rounded across the board. Resist stats and Needle Guard really don't need to work too well together because he's going to intercept and counter anyway. Thundershot and Laser, like I said, have very good power, and he has a very healthy HP pool to help keep him alive. And that high evade means, again, he will be putting a large emphasis on dodging or grazing to keep his damage low. As mixed parts, I do have to rate him just a little bit higher at about an 8 out of 10. Given that Needle Guard, much like other guards, is going to be kind of niche in some cases, I do feel Needle Guard is probably going to be a lot easier to use compared to most others, just for the fact that whatever comes, he's going to counter it anyway, minus some exceptions. Thundershot, you really can't ever go wrong with using, especially on a head part, especially for male models no less too. This will be a very welcome update, very welcome inclusion. And Right Arm of Laser, very solid, conventional, and well-rounded optic skill you really can't ever go wrong with using, so it's going to be very solid to have all around. If anything, his legs are going to be kind of a mixed bag, like I said, so if you are going to use them, just make sure that whoever is using them is going to be covered by a defender to help keep him protected, because those low resist stats are probably going to come back and bite him if someone does end up bypassing them.